the MDM version 1.31 demonstration presented by Magnus. So in this short demonstration, I will go through some of the new options and functionality, as well as the changes in the MDM version 1.31. So first off, in the setup, just to mention a few things, category definitions and user routings are no longer used. So the customer can now use these options for whatever they see fit. Another thing, the member hold status is no longer used to indicate a non-default paint type on a member. Now, this information is being saved within the member properties as it always has been. It's just that it no longer appears on the 2D detail through the member's hold status. However, if the user would like the non-default paint type to appear on the drawing, or the default paint type for that member to appear on the 2D drawing, the user has a couple of options. Number one, they can edit the existing schema. In this case, it's finish type. And through SDS2, just edit the schema, and you can add a check mark to the add to member detail option, and of course, fill it out in accordance to what your wishes are. And you can have it appear on the the 2D detail if required. Furthermore, you can also add it to the bill of material. Now, understand by default, these options are unchecked. You can also, if requested, use the MDM note option to have that paint type written to the detail. Now, please keep in mind this is not automatic. So if you would like that to happen, I would have to write a parametric for this. It's fairly simple. In fact, I probably will write one very soon just to get it out of the way, so anybody who would want to use it, it'll be ready for them. And we can go from there. And also, it's a parametric. It's easy for me to write. I don't have to pass it along to my programmer. Okay, so keep that in mind. The status for hold and the routings are no longer used. So a couple of things now. For those users who are going to use MDM version 1.31 in 2018, it is possible now that if you don't want to, you don't have to use that second fabricator. So if you remember, for those people using version 1.2 and below, that we required a second fabricator due to the pen color on PDFs. We basically, for those not familiar with this, it's to, when a user puts something, or the detailer puts something manually on a detail, we'd like to see it come out as a different color so the checker can know that that's the item the user added. So that's no longer necessary. And I'll show you why in a few minutes. So I'm going to turn them all off for this project. One thing that in 2018 that you must be aware of is under user options for each user. Under the highlighting tab is make sure show layers and colors in drawing editor and layer colors in PDFs are checked. Also in the setup of your project, under drawing cosmetics, you will see the tab at the far right, colors. And it's here you can select the color to be displayed, in this case when a user annotation is added under a user annotation layer. So we're going to jump right into 3D, and I'm going to show some new options. So as usual, we'll put everything in solid and turn on my status display. So I'm going to detail these three members. Now, in my case, nothing has been checked yet, so I'm going to do a quick bypass of all the options and go right to detailing. as usual, if you're using the piece marking tool, the system will show you what the new marks can be, and I will confirm them. So the new option, once it opens up, Battle Detail, is the auto renaming of piece marks. So if you look at that B107, C104, and C105, once I've detailed it, the MDM system will actually go through and rename them. So that is the first new option or new item that we have available, is the auto renaming of member marks using the piece marking tool. So I would detail them as normal. So I'm just going to do a couple of extra things and then to show you what is new in 2018. So I'm going to open the detail of that B1A0013. And we're going to detail it as if it was I was the real detailer cleaning up this drawing. So a couple of different things that are going to happen when the detailer opens a drawing. So the first thing is they're going to have to turn on the user annotation layer color. So as you can see, my reference automatically changed color to indicate that it was something the user, in this case MDM, added. So let me just go in here. I'm going to get rid of some of these dimensions and notations and unshorten it, and I'm going to add a simple dimension. So now, since that layer color is turned on, when I actually add anything under the user layer, it will use that color. A couple of caveats with that is, since my user adjusted is turned on as well, if the detailer comes in and say changes of a dimension or a value, it will turn that color selected in setup as well. Please understand that if the detailer does this and they put it back to what it was, it will still remain in that color, because in this case it has been adjusted and it's something I would like the checker to double check. Okay, so I'm just going to finish by adding the rest of those dimensions and notations. I'm going to shorten my drawing and, of course, save it. So at this point, what the detailer would do is actually place this upon a sheet. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go into my model and I'm going to run the drawing control tool. So the drawing control tool window opens and we have the PDF export button on the lower left. And there is a new column in PDF export. So number one, there's a detail to be loaded on a sheet. So a couple of caveats. If I had loaded this within SDS2 and bypassed this selection, it would actually be listed in the column for detail sheet. So this is just details that are ready to be loaded. So I'm going to load my first copy. When I do that, a window will open up showing all my available sheet sizes for this project. So I'm going to select a couple of them. Now, what MDM will do, it'll always try the smallest sheet first. If it doesn't fit, it will go to the next one. So what it's doing right now, it's actually loading the detail on a sheet in SDS2. And then it will produce a PDF copy of it for MDM checking. Now, in the case here, C1A006 is too large to fit on any of the sheets I selected. So what I can do is, once it rolls through the rest of the loading, I'm going to select it again. I'm going to print first copy. This time I'll use a larger sheet. It was just an example to show that if you did have a drawing too large to fit on any of the sheets you selected, it does let you know. So I'm just going to put it on that sheet. It would appear that there's a report. That's a default SDS2 sheet. Maybe there might be a report on it. So now I have those items ready to check. So I'm just going to open up B1A0013 just to show you the PDF copy. And open on my other screen, just to show you that the colors that I've used are now available, are now visible upon the PDF copy. And at this point, of course, the checker can go through and yellow out items as needed or red them, and we can go from there. So I'm just going to move these to the check column and into the final check to indicate that they're done. Okay, so let me open up Axis 3 so we can see a little better. Now, I have these three members that have to go through the process. Now, the next option, or the new functionality that I will show, is for those users who actually use the option in member and material piece marking options to break apart members by the sequence. So in my case here, I have these two members. They're exactly the same. The only difference is they're in different sequences. So now when I run it through the update system and I get to the detailing point, I'll confirm the piece marks. So now the system will actually open the detailing window. I will detail it. A warning will appear, or a question, I should say, indicating some of the members that are in the process of being detailed are exactly the same as a member that's already been detailed and checked, etc. So do I want to use the Save As feature? So I'm going to say yes. So what it's going to do now is going to actually make a one-to-one copy of the original finished member, and it is going to replace, whatever I did for the new member with the stuff from the old member, except for of course, the piece mark of the member itself and its location. So once I've done that, it's going to ask me to load it on a sheet. I can, if I wish to, not to load it on a sheet, but I'm going to make it ready to print. Okay. So it's just indicating on the warning behind it that the new mark will not be changed because I used the Save As feature. Okay, now having done that, I want to make sure that the bill of material of this second member, that is the same as the one from before, the bill of material itself is representative of this new member, not the old one, because I used the Save As function. So I'm just going to click OK. So to do that, it'll pop open the annotation and dimensioning window once more, and I'll check the detail bill of material only option. So it's going through the process. I'll close the window. And as you can see, they've been loaded, they've been detailed. Now, the only difference is the member that was the same as another member, the one right below it, it has already been put on a sheet and it's ready to check. So if I open that PDF, you'll notice it is exactly the same with the brown annotations that the user put in as in the original drawing. So as you can notice, the piece mark is different, the elevations are different, the reference can be different, but the member itself is not. So we'll close that. Next functionality addition is for those of you who use different license types. So in the case of, say, 2018, if you're using 2018's or 2017's drafting station, which is the 2D module of SDS2, it's a separate license. I thought I opened it. Let me try that once more. Oh, there it is. So the drafting station is supported when using MDM version 1.31. So something just to keep in mind, you're still limited to what a drafting station can do. So please keep in mind you can't create connections in SDS2 drafting station. So it still has that limitation. Next, another functionality we've added. I'm going to look at this member right here. So you'll notice that I'm sure what a lot of you do is when you have, say, a truss in this case, you'll put in the top chord as a beam, and then you'll just add material to it. So in this case, this is exactly what I've done as well. So I'm going to go through the detailing process. And once we get to the piece marking option, I can go in, as I always could, and detail it like it was a truss as far as the piece marking goes. And the new option is whether or not to update the model. So what that simply means is when I go through my detailing process, I'm going to confirm it. As you can see, the mark changed for trusses. It will change the description of that member, in this case a beam, to be whatever I've selected, in this case a truss. So let me close that out just to show you one last time. If I edit that member, as you can see, it's carrying that truss piece mark. But keep in mind, it is still a beam. If I go under the status, the member description says truss. So when I detail this out, it'll say in the bill of material, 1 truss. On the title block, it'll say 1 truss T2A001. So you can do that on the fly. You can update the member description when you're using one of the aliases. So next is the aliases themselves. I'm going to go into the piece marking setup. And this new option, is the functionality to add an alias on the fly, or a wildcard. I call them wildcards sometimes. So I'm going to create a new, say, piece marking system for door frames. So I'm going to create a door frame, give it my piece marking, and I'm going to save it as new. Now this you could always do. The new functionality is actually adding a custom alias or wildcard choice. So I'm going to use the same description. Now, for those using, on a real job at this point, you would export your functionality so it will be available for later. But in my case, I'm just going to click OK and close. So I'm going to open line 2 where I actually have some, line 3, I believe, a makeshift door frame. So I'm going to turn off my status display temporarily just to show you that in my case, I entered the horizontal part of the door frame as a beam while the 2 verticals as columns. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to detail them. So I'm going to run that update system. I'm going to bypass any checks, go right to detailing. So there's no reference found. Do you want to keep it? Yes. So now when we get to the piece marking tool, I'm going to go into the generate as, and you can see door frame is now available. So I'm going to update it. I'm going to go through the 2 columns, door frame, and I'm going to confirm them. So of course it would go through the same system as you saw prior. Just detailing the member, it'll rename them. So of course it's gotten the new piece marks for door frames. If I edit the member, one of the members, go into its status, as you can see, it's door frame. One thing to keep in mind, though, when using the new aliases or adding new items like that, or the update system for the piece marks, it does not change or add them to the project's material descriptions. So as you can see, I do not have door frame here. So that is totally internal. So that just simply means that if I was to try that manually on another member type, I was going to go into status and attempt to change it manually, it will not be there. So if you would like everything to match, perhaps after it's done, just add that material description manually to the miscellaneous table. The next option, so just to be sure, so in transmittal. So now at this point, let's say I was ready for the transmittal. I'm the project manager or the person who's going to do a transmittal for approval or fabrication. A couple of things you want to keep in mind. So if you remember when we did that PDF and they had the brown writing or the different colored annotations on the detail, well, I'm sending it to the shop for fabrication or for approval. I don't want that there. So I want to make sure that, the engineer, the guys in the shop, that they're not confused as to what this is. This is internal only for detailing in the office purposes only. So prior to finalizing a transmittal, what you would do, or the project manager, they would go into their user options and simply go to the highlighting tab and turn off the show layer colors on PDF. So I'm going to go and do a transmittal very quickly, create one. I'm going to go update, so I'm just going to select all my items except for the door frames for now. All my details, I'm going to transfer them, select them all. I'm going to add them to the current transmittal. So the new functionality is to auto-select the erection sheets in which you will find these members. So I selected the option, select the transmittal, and as you can see, the erection sheets have been selected. It is similar to the auto-selection of gather sheets from the members. So it's, in this case, this is an old option or an older option. It selected all the gather sheets for submaterial that are found on the selected detail drawings. So I'm going to close that out. So that is part one. That is basically the new stuff. Now, what I want to show next is actually going from version 1.2 or below to version 1.31 of the MDM module. So I'm going to mention a couple of things before I show that. Now, our testing for the version of MDM 1.31, which I'm showing, is only applicable to SDS2's versions 2017 and 2018. It will not work on version 2016 or below. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so let me close that out. And I'm going to go to a version that has version of the MDM 1.2. So I'm going to show how to, number one, update your current version of SDS2 so that it employs MDM version 1.31, and also how to update a project to do that. So first thing, I'm just going to show that we are, it is using the older version of MDM. So if I edit a member, I go into the status, you'll notice that there's a routing is being used. And also just to mention in setup, under, say, the routing, I can just show you that this version is being used as far as the routings and the categories. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have to update the custom properties of this project so that it can accommodate like the new options of MDM version 1.31. So there are two ways to do this. Number one, actually, make sure everybody's out of this project. If you're updating, in this case, we will be, the version of MDM, everybody has to get out of SDS2 completely. So this would possibly be an after work or at lunch update so you don't lose production time. So the first thing I'm going to do, as I said, is for the project, I want to update it so it can carry the new properties. There's two ways to do this. I can go through the the utility functions, merge schema into current job. So I can select the source. I will send out, or I'll have available projects that you can copy directly from. Or instead of selecting a project, you can go File and browse to the new flavors that we'll have available. And you can do it that way. Just select the, oops, wrong one, excuse me. The meta, the schemas, and select whichever schema you want to update. So that's one way. Another way is through Windows. So in this case, I'm going to open to Windows Explorer. And again, I think this is another option. Windows, it doesn't need to be closed, but I've grown into the habit. If I go into the database of the project I'm currently working on, or it's open in SDS2, I'll close it out. So I'm going to go on one folder to the data. And if I believe it was 2017-19, go to the job. So I was working on the manager job. On the other side, I'm just going to go say, actually, I'll use that same, the other project. This should be good. Or I can actually go into the flavor files that we have available that I will send to everybody. It'll be on the email that you should shortly receive. Okay, and I'm gonna use the MDM and model approval. Now, I just want to mention one thing about custom properties. If you use our custom property, either the MDM minimum or MDM and model approval, and you've added items to that yourself, so it becomes a custom property, I'm going to have to update it myself. Or I would suggest that you do not do it this way that I'm showing through Windows and use the merge schema into your current project. Because what I'm doing right now is not combining two properties. I'm getting rid of one and replacing it with another. So I'm just going to open that up. We're going to start with, say, the meta folder. Schemas, and I'm going to copy from my new version and replace the ones in my destination of my project. So I'll just go back a few, and we're going to go to custom. So in this case, I'm just going to verify, I don't have a job to remove, so I'm just going to remove the other two and replace them with my newer versions. So again, please keep in mind, I am replacing one-to-one this way. And it's not a question of merging them together. So if you want to merge, you have a custom one you've already done, I would suggest you use the merge function in utility functions. And again, if you require help with this, feel free to call me and I'll walk you through it. We'll do an online meeting and we can do it, together through the system. Okay, so now that is done for the project. I'm going to run a parametric that will be available with the installer. So if I run this macro, And again, as I said, this will be available with the installer. Okay, it's MDM upgrade the project to version 1.31. So simply run the parametric, and it will go through every member, reading those routings and those categories and any statuses, and writing that information to the member's properties. So keep in mind, I had 171 members here. It took about 5 seconds. If you have a project with 4,000 members, it may take substantially longer. So keep that in mind. So now, if I just edit the member, I just want to mention a couple of things. I'm upgrading this project to be able to use MDM version 1.31. However, at the point of updating the project to this new version, of course, those old routings and categories, if there was something selected or if there's something in it, it will not change or wipe out the setup. Please keep that in mind. So at this point, I've updated my projects to use the new flavors or properties, and then I've updated my members so that those new properties are filled out in accordance to whatever routing will happen to be used on that member. So I'm going to close SDS2 once more. So now I am going to actually install the new version of MDM. So if I go to my demo stuff, oh, sorry, went to the wrong folder. 1.31 installer, and I'm going to install it. So when you install it, please point to the proper database. By default, the management modules installer will point to the last version of SDS2 that was installed on your system. So in my case, I want it on 2017.19. So you don't have to point to the plugin folder, just the parent folder of the database. I'm going to install it, let it run. And it's done. So the next thing I'm going to do is the status displays that I happen to be using, especially the management module that indicates, whether an item has been detailed, it's been stick, checked, etc. These no longer apply because there are some statuses, like the routings, that are no longer used. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this folder. And once we run the new MDM, it will replace the items. However, I want to mention a couple of things. If you've added any of your own user folders to that, user status displays to that folder, of course, if I erase them, they're gone. So what I would suggest, if you have any custom ones that you've added, cut them out, place them somewhere safe, as it were, delete that folder, run the version of SDS2, so that project, 2017-19. Now, I will get some warning indicators, because for me, I was using those status displays as defaults. So if you remember in your user options, under configuration files, I'm going to get that warning every time I access it, the defined statuses. Okay, so of course those statuses no longer exist, so I want to replace them. And it is a quick and easy way to do that. So again, I'm going to get that warning. I open up the model. If I select a member and run the update system on it, I don't have to change anything. Now, if I close it, I'm going to close out of the model just to show you, and it has been replaced with the new one. So as you can see the date. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my old or my custom display options. Now, don't forget, dependent upon what you're doing and your status displays, they might need to be modified. So if you were using the whole status, any of the routings 2 and 3, or a category, they must be modified. So I'm going to close that out. I'm going to open the model. And as you can see, I don't get that warning anymore because we didn't rename the statusing. Oops. And of course, my members have that same color as before. If I was to update a member, I don't know where I am here, right to release the check. It updates it. And just to show you in the routing, it did not change. So the routing is no longer used on this project. So now that we've updated a project and SDS2 this version to accommodate version 1.31, perhaps I would like to update or fix another project. So in this case, once the installation is done, the only thing I would actually have to do is update the schema. So in this case, since I already have the manager project is already updated, I'm just going to browse to it. So what do I want to copy? So if you're not sure, in this case, it's just member, but if you're not sure, you can do them a couple of times, but in this case, it's just the member information. So it indicates some duplicate items. That's fine. That was known to happen. I'm going to go into the model. So all I did is copy the schemas from my other project. I open the model. I'm going to run that macro to update the project itself so that it'll transfer all those routings. So again, all my members are updated. If you do get a quantity for members not updated, chances are it's they've been locked by the system for some reason. So now that that's done, this new project has been updated to accommodate version 1.31. So as you can see, the biggest, not hurdle, but the biggest step is when you're going to update SDS2 and a project the first time. Anything beyond that point on that version is just a question of updating the schema and running that macro so everything gets transferred properly. Okay, so that is all. You will all receive an email shortly, or you've already received it probably by the time this is published to YouTube, informing you how to do this and the new stuff, etc., how to download it, where to download it from, and of course my contact information, which I will not put on this video due to this going up on YouTube. I don't want to get crank calls, etc. So again, if you need help updating or how to use it, you can give me a call or contact me and I will set aside some time for you. Also, since I have your attention, I would like to know, are there things you would like to see on new videos? Because I think I'm going to do this a video maybe once every 2 weeks or every week or as needed. That things that users would like to see, maybe some training stuff, some certain portions, you know, how to do a revision within MDM specifically. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to contact me and let me know. And thank you for your time. Thank you.